Welcome back, my subscribers. Hope all is well. Friends, viewership. I'm gonna talk about James Tour. James Tour. I think he's one of the most brilliant scientists ever on the face of the earth right now. James Tour. Um, he's not a physicist. He's a organic chemist, deal with molecules and all of these and nanotechnology. And very brilliant. I don't understand these people. These people don't receive a Nobel Prize yet, and they have Nobel Prize given away to all kind of people. You know, those who made the messenger RNA during the COVID, they get Nobel Prize for their work, and even though it devastated humanity, they get Nobel Prize for their work. One of the criteria to get a Nobel Prize, it has to benefit whatsoever it is. It has to benefit humanity. You know, it has to contribute somehow beneficially to humanity. It has to cure some illness or something. And has to be novel, the original. It has to have a degree of originality to it. James Tour is doing a lot, not only in chemistry, but a lot in other areas. You know, building graphite to and many using nanotechnology to cure disease and a lot of other major contribution to the medical community. And so he's a well-credentialed man, and yeah, you have patent a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff out there with James Tour fingerprint on it, man. His intellectual properties is out there, and so I don't understand how, even to this very day, he has never achieved a Nobel Prize. You know, but there are a lot of other great minds out there that are doing their stuff. You know, all the original scientists back then. You know, Copernicus, Isaac Newton, then Galileo, and all these foundation scientists, um, Leibniz, you know, they seems to they're the foundation to science. They have Christian belief. All of them of Christian belief. They believe that the universe that they're studying is God and the work, and God does not impedes science. God is the one that makes science possible based on how he created things in a law-like way, and orderly way. And one of the presuppositions of science, that let us look at the presupposition of science. You know, some of the presupposition of science to tell you that without God, this science is impossible. The presupposition of science help you understand what I'm talking about. And Stephen Myers in his book, The God Hypothesis, and John Lennon, um, not Lennon, but John Lennox, and many other modern Christian apologists, scientists, mathematicians, and you make that known to the general audience. And in order for you to make sense of the world, a matter of fact, you can't when you have a debate between a scientist and a Christian, a scientist are not, like saying atheist and Christians. Every time they open them out, they're borrowing information, or as what they put it, borrowing capital from the Christian worldview to make sense of their worldview. Because if God doesn't undergird your worldview, the worldview can't make sense of the world. Because when you check it out, it is not this world that we're living in is not some kind of simulation. I'm going to talk about that in another video. It's not some kind of simulation. It's a real world. Real. As I often said, it's a brainchild of the most feared being in the whole universe. Most intelligent, infinitely intelligent being in the whole universe. It's God himself. And look at the things now that undergird science, that make science philosophically stated, because science can't define itself. Define itself is lead to self-refutation. Now let's look at some assumption. The truth and rationality of science. In order for it to be truthful and rational, it has to be undergirded by these components. Science must assume that the mind is rational, and that the universe is rational in such a way that the mind can know it. The universe is intelligible, and human beings are intelligent. The mind was made to correspond with the universe, to see, to learn it, learn about it, to observe things about it. There is no inconsistency. If there's an inconsistency between the mind and the universe, it always has to do with the rationality of scientists, physicists. When they form their hypothesis and their theories, something went wrong. If there's an inconsistency, there cannot be a contradiction between God's world and our mind. We don't project anything out of the universe. The universe is an extramental, a mind-independent reality that we perceive literally and veritably. Veridical, real. Science must assume some uniformity of nature to justify induction. Science must assume that one can legitimately infer from the past to the future and from the examined cases to unexamined ones of some kind. Now we know that the sun rises this morning. It will rise tomorrow morning. Things that we know experientially about the universe or how things happen is the uniformity of nature. The uniformity of nature. And so that's why past is wholly key to the present, as how they put it. Because of the uniformity of nature. Universe is not chaotic. It's not absurd. We don't live in a chaotic and absurd universe. We live in a rational, orderly, law-like universe. And if you catch some water into a cup and then you pour it out, that it's going to come out, flow right out of the cup. Today, tomorrow, into the future. It will not go up. Water will not go up. It go up. It go out of the cup right on the floor. And we talk about induction. Where this is a scientific process. We start from the effect to the cause. We reason from that way. And deduction, reason from the cause to the effect. Just because hydrogen and oxygen combined to form water in the past are examined cases, why should we assume that the same will happen in the future or unexamined cases? So always be water, right? Science seems to assume the existence of universal and the uniformity of nature to justify such inductive inferences from the examined members of a class to all members of a class, past and future. But these assumptions cannot themselves be justified inductively, but philosophically. The justification of induction is a philosophical issue. All the assumptions of science are philosophical, because science cannot justify these things by this philosophical assumption, because they are not things that are susceptible to scientific scrutiny or investigation. You can't put these things under the microscope and test them, and repeatability, experimental verifiability, our testability, observability, and all these things can apply to these fundamental philosophical assumptions. Science also assumes that the law of logic are true. It assumes that the law of logic are true. Can imagine without the first principles of the mind, the a priori category of the mind, to reason logically and rationally. Nothing could ever be known. These are fundamental for knowledge. Without the law of logic, knowledge could not be possible. that numbers exist since scientific theories seem to assert, for instance, that water is H2O, where two-ness is just as much as a constituent of water as oxygen is, that language is meaning, and that some terms refer to things in the world, since scientific theories are themselves examples of language and thus are involved in problems of the general semantics. The truth exists and involves some sort of correspondence between theories and the world, assuming the rational realism to be true. There are different aspects of science. A lot of people question science, the nature of science, and because science makes so much claims, and a lot of people question a lot of the assumption that a lot of the claims that science makes. Like, for instance, you have rational realism, you have rational non-realism, you have constructive empiricism, you have pragmatism, operationism, phenomenalism, and non-rational non-realism. These are different perspectives or people examine science, and because they claim so much about the natural world. For instance, there are a lot of this when it comes on to rational realism, is this perspective is holds that there are a lot of truth claim about science that scientists made based upon observability, testability, um, verifiability, uh, you know, a lot of they tells us a lot. Science tells us a lot. Or let me say, scientists, by means of the tool of science, tell us a lot about the universe. All of these talk about these particles and atoms and like neutrino. Even though like tachycan, that is never been observed, but they believe that this is a particle. This is something that travels more faster than the speed of light. There. No, we talk about ordinary matter. We talk about dark matter. Dark energy is questionable, but dark matter is believed to be a major role, a matter for make up a major part of the constituency of space, or the nature of space, and ordinary matter. Dark matter seems to very difficult to see because it does not, like ordinary matter, reflect lights, absorb light, but it's there. It's there. Rational realism believe that the aspect of these scientific claims that are really true. They're approximation of the universe. Because we're talking about approximation because a lot of times, theories come up and then 2 years time, this theory is debunked by new theories, and so what they, with scientists talk about the approximation, and because their aspect of the universe that is very difficult to put your fingers on, more, and there's a word that is called tentativeness. Tentativeness is science can talk certain way. They can't um, talk in a dogmatic way. They have to talk with a certain reservation. So they use word like probably, you know, they try to avoid word like must, you know, like must. It must be, you know. So far as we observe things, it's likely to be such and such and such. Because most of the time they talk things, they don't really a 100% certainty about what they're talking about or what they're examining. You know what I'm saying? It's like, man, nature is very complex and elusive to many of these scientific investigation. You know, so they do a lot of extrapolation and too, yeah, do a lot of extrapolation. Yeah, so but the others see things that are not accurate description. Accurate description of what they actually see. You know. But we'll deal with that in some other time. But let me continue. Science also assumes that the laws of logic are true. That numbers exist. Since scientific theory seems to assert, for instance, that water is H. You talk about that already. Further, science assumes certain moral and epistemic, that's to do with mind, belief, and methodological values. Regarding moral values, science assumes that experiments should be reported honestly. Yeah. You see, there's a moral dimension to science. You have to be honest about your findings, about your observation, and so don't lie about it. And where does this moral dimension come from? Not science itself, but from an absolute infinite being that created human being with a moral dimension. Part of his being an image bearer of God. That's where it comes from. Can't come from anywhere else. And that truth telling is a moral virtue. Truth telling is a moral virtue. And even then, they lie a lot. Scientists lie a lot, man. They talk about things that they do not understand. Like, for instance, as Lee Cronin, as it has been said, that he believed that he could create life in his laboratory about, what, 2011? And he talked with that certainty. Remember, tentativeness is a part of the scientific community. The word tentativeness, talk tentatively. Do not talk with absolute certainty. But he believed with all his heart and mind that he could create life in the universe, in his laboratory, and this is 2025. Cannot. No man. You see, like what the statement what I'm going to make right now, scientists cannot talk that way. No man, let me state it. No man will ever discover how life was created scientifically. No man will ever discover that. But the scientists will say they can talk that way. They can make that never, because a lot of times they say that, for instance, they always use, like James Tour always uses example. Like, you talk to somebody in the first century, about going to space, we're going to travel, make these massive flying machines, you're playing, and we're going to travel, use them to travel from one country to the next. And you probably can have a concept in your head and you can put it on paper and draw it and show this person. This person will say, what? You're crazy? You will never accomplish that. You will never accomplish that. There are a lot of things we can say that about, you know. But when there are certain things right off the bat, man, you can know. I agree that, back in the first century, a person would say, never, ever, never, ever would human being able to accomplish such astronomical feat. But they did. And if that person get the opportunity to see it themselves, they would think that they're looking at another civilization that enter into our world with higher form of technology. They could not believe that humanity, the human being that he is, could achieve such phenomena. Space travel, build atomic bombs, the medicine that we have today would be a dream for people in the first, second, and third century. A lot of stuff that we have today, if you could take them from their time and put them in our time, they would think that we're gods. But we get this information, from God himself on a different plane, different level than they, in their time. And yet that's why we can't put down, when we talk about chronological snobbery, you have to be careful. Even though we are more advanced than people back then, in many ways, they're advanced than us in many other ways too. See? So we can't, human beings are incredibly intelligent and brainy and have a lot of potential to do a lot of stuff. The building, what I understand, that most of the things that that confound modern intelligence is the things that these people built. The architectural engineering ability. These people build things with materials that really baffled our imagination, baffled our intelligence. Because how did these people didn't have this technology? The system that we have, these trucks and cranes and all of these machines that we use in our time to do these things. These people back then didn't have anything close to that what we have. No cable, nothing like that. They use rope, some nature things from nature's, like some, what do you call them, that they, that people can actually hold and swing, without it break apart. They use these things to pull things, and they fabricate things that they can use as cards and pull these massive stones and erect these massive stones. And the archaeological, their architectural engineering ability is astounding. When you check it out, when you check out those things that these men build, man, and what we have today. How many times we see crane taking up heavy stuff and just topple in our time? That's what would happen. That's what happened if they did. How did these guys get these massive stone to build pyramids and over the world? Mexico and Egypt and all of these where Indonesia, this kind of temple that they build with those complicated artwork and design. And even I think even the church that was burned down in Paris, yeah, that ancient church that was burned down, part of it, uh, they couldn't, they didn't, they couldn't duplicate what they had seen, what this guy, what those guys who built it. The modern man could not um, simulate the design. They couldn't build it the way they found it or they saw it. They couldn't. It was it was beyond their ability. Yet when we talk about chronological snobbery, this is, oh, those people in the past are primitive and stuff. No, 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 no. They're not primitive. They're brilliant, and not because we in our time have a lot of stuff that they didn't have. They build stuff that we can't build in our time. They have stuff that they can't build in our time. Seeing a documentary where some builders travel the world and look on different Asian architectural, design and building structures and stuff like that, and they were puzzled. There's certain things that they saw that they cannot do these things in our time, regardless of the technology and all of these laser that and all these different things that you see that man made that you use in building structures and all of these things, and now they're using AI system and all of these things to build stuff, and yet they cannot be equated with those men back then that didn't have half of the things that we have to build stuff. It's amazing. And a lot of other things when it comes to herbs and plants and stuff. Some of these Aboriginal people and stuff, they know a lot of stuff on plants and herbs that can cure this, help this, and stuff like that. And they weren't in the doctor in having a doctorate in pharmacy or anything like that, man. But they know a lot of stuff. So human beings are so intelligent. It's amazing. So, regarding epistemic virtues, science assumes that theories ought to be simple, accurate, predictively successful, and so forth. When we talk about the simplicity, the theory has to be simple and accurate. You have a lot of theories that are very complicated, convoluted, and have been and models that have been undergirded with complex mathematics. And the first thing that comes to our mind when we talk about simplicity of scientific, investigation and principle is the Occam razor. You don't. It's a scientific rule of thumb. It's you don't involve if a particular state of affair requires these two components. Do not add a third. Do not add a fourth. That's what it's called, Occam razor. It's you shave off a necessary component to it. And the simpler the explanation, the more accurate it seems to be. The more complex, little falsehood. It's a scientific principle that, but it cannot apply to metaphysics though. It's just a scientific principle, and people always try to apply it to metaphysics. Like for instance, the Trinity. It's why not get rid of the person God? Why not get rid of two person, leave it with one person per being in being, and more simply, more understandable that way. It won't create mathematical absurdity where some people think it does, but it cannot apply to metaphysics or ontology. It's just applied to science itself, right? And even within science, when you talk about human being, they believe that materialism, or naturalistic materialism, or this materialism itself, it's more comports with uh, this rule more comports with materialism, because other than substance dualism, what do you call it, Cartesian dualism, which states that we, a human being, there's two components to us. There's the matter and there's a spirit. And some people even want to say there's a matter, spirit, and soul, but trichotomous aspect of human beings. But human beings is dichotomous. That more philosophers more hold to that view more than the trichotomous aspect. Probably find more of that in the religious aspect, body, soul, body, spirit, and soul, and stuff like that. But in simplicity, body and soul. And so, because they think that is a violation of the Occam razor, so they just stick to materialism. So they call it materialistic reductionism. So it has to be predictably successful. In not all cases. A lot of different scientists coming up these days talking about what the universe is and all kind of stuff. And I guarantee a lot of these theories are not simple. They're a violation of the Occam razor, and they are inaccurate, and they are predictably unsuccessful, because they make this kind of prediction, but there is no way to verify these things. No way to verify these things scientifically. No way. And some of them come in stark contrast to what they hold as a fundamental of science and physics today. So they will be sidelined by top physicists today as I don't think that really, not even close to approximation of what science, what they observe in the universe. Listen, physicists these days are becoming more of a storyteller, man. Storyteller, making up stories, making up new models that they think this is how the universe works, trying to overthrow Einstein theories. Because as I said before, it's all about proving Einstein wrong. Because Einstein become the institution of physics. Right? He's like a god of physics. So if you can dethrone him, if you can prove most of his theories wrong, you become Einsteinian. Then you get all the glory, all the acclamation, and all the honors is due to you, because you have overthrown this God that have been reigning for years now. And all that these scientists are doing is just sitting in their office, in the university, in the little room of theirs, and in their own private resorts, and trying to figure out a way how we can dethrone this guy. How we can prove this guy wrong in at least most of what he said. How can we do that? Until this very day, none of them can. They have a lot of people coming up with different ways. They think, you know, the gravity. Like for instance, Einstein understanding of gravity is not as the Newtonian gravity. Einstein gravity has to do with the indentation of space by a heavy object that create a depression in space, and then everything is get pulled into that depression in space. Like space is understood as a fabric. Talk about the fabric of space. That's why it is termed that matter bends space, and space taught matter how to move. Kind of simplistic expression. Everybody's trying to dethrone him, but they can't. All of these brilliant scientists are coming up and making up stories and trying to use mathematics to make what? To make successful predictions of the known universe, but futile until this very day. They haven't made any major breakthrough in anything for years now. And they know that, they talk about it. It's as if they'll reach an end of this self. Physics has come to an end of itself. Can't make any. The frontier, seem like they reach the frontier of their discipline. Just can't. No, it just can't. Just a lot of stories, a lot of speculation, and all of these things. They become philosophers and storytellers, some myth makers so far. Regarding methodological values, science often values such thing as disinterestedness, organized skepticism, and procedural rules. Example, prefer double-blind experiments to single-blind experiments. Prefer theories which make bold new prediction to those which merely explain past data retrospectively, or make sure to calibrate instrument X with standard Y. As I said before, new prediction, novel theories. The desperate, and so those are the assumption. Mine has to be right, working right, highs, honesty, morality, all of these things, and the uniformity of nature is fundamental to science. As this Christian philosopher put it, you squeeze your toothpaste, the toothpaste come flying out today. You squeeze the toothpaste tomorrow, the toothpaste come flying out tomorrow. And another day it keep flying out tomorrow. The next, whatsoever. Today, tomorrow, the next day, toothpaste, squeeze it, toothpaste will be coming out. You look at the basic things of nature, what you see in nature, when you look out there. The moon will be where it is. The moon will still orbits. The earth will still orbit the sun, and the basics physics that you see around you in daily life. Something falls from your desk, it's going to fall to the ground. Right? This is the principle of uniformity. The uniformity of nature teaches these things. The past, the future reflect the past, the uniformity of nature, and these are fundamental to science. Very fundamental to science. in order for science to operate as science. And they have to come to the understanding that they're human beings, and they will not understand everything, and they will never be able to classify everything or understand a lot about the universe that they're studying for years. A lot of things that they said about the universe are not true, not even close to approximation. They're just myth, you know. And even some scientists, top scientists, won't even give a hearing or read other scientists' um, models that they come up with about the universe, because some they are a lot of them very selfish. They don't want to hear what other scientists, especially if you're not one of those top scientists that is influential. They don't want to hear, and it's a possibility that if they give audience to a scientist that is not known, they, you never know. People must not do these things. Sometimes it's a scientist that is not up there, is not Einsteinian or Newtonian or those kind of level of intelligence or genius. Probably there's a genius, quiet genius there, not because they are not famous and known in the physics department or scientific community. You they write a paper, and you refuse to read it and see, let me see what this guy is saying. No, I don't want to see what he's saying. I'm working hard on what I'm doing because I want to be the next revolution. um, Revolution is to change the whole paradigm of things. So, I can't waste my time to look at anybody paper. I have to put in all my energy, everything that my brain power into this paper, because I want to change the world. I want to come up with a theory that overthrow Einstein, overthrow Isaac Newton. Instead of you try to figure out something, some other aspect of the universe that probably transcend or move beyond Einstein, move beyond Newton. That's not really the objective that these guys are going for. They're gunning for Einstein, gunning for Einstein, man. So we have read in biology, as I was saying about James Tour. He's a phenomenal out there to be reckoned with, because he come to change the paradigm shift about the origin of life. Origin of life theories, panspermia. And as he explained, that your meteor can bring amino acid from outer space, but they're not enough, and they're usually receiving. That means they have left and then and right hand the nest, and you need on the left hand the nest to make life possible, and all of this. So there's a lot of objection concerning meteor from outer space, and that spread life upon the face of the earth from outer space. And so life came by billions of years of Russian roulette, hoping that the lucky card has been drawn, or the lucky number played, where you get life on the face of the earth and stuff like that. And it comes, but random, billions of years, random chance. And time, as Dr. James said, it is an enemy of biology, like the evolutionary method. Time does nothing, really. Time is, as one person wrote, time is a spectator to all things, doesn't do anything. So why people always like to push time in order for my house to turn into some spaceship. It might take over 200 trillion years for that to happen. Why they like to do that? Why they think the more time you have, is the more likelihood for something to happen? I don't know why they have that kind of belief. It doesn't make any sense. A lot of things can happen without spontaneously, instantaneously, just like the universe came about instantaneously from the mouth of God. He spoke it into existence. bam, it's here. But a lot of people rather that slow evolutionary process for things to be. Just give us enough time. Don't put God in the gap yet. Just give us enough time, and scientists will discover how it come to be. No, you will not. You will not. The universe, nobody will ever discover, no science, no physicist will ever discover how the universe came to be. They tell you right now that they don't know how it come to be. People speculating like Stephen Hawking is talking about some kind of law give rise to the universe, and then it start up a argument of infinite progress. So what is the law? Where the law comes from? Law descriptive of how the universe functions. They're not prescriptive. They describe how the universe functions and works. They can't. They have no causal power to do anything. And as John Lennox explained, the law of mathematics can't give you money in your pocket. They can't create money in your pocket. They just can, help with multiplication, addition, and subtraction of your money that you work to put in the pocket, but it itself can't do all of these things. So why? And then you have like people like Raymond Noble, and Denis Noble write this book, Understanding the Living System. And it's a very interesting book. They have a different, they want to create a paradigm shift about the whole biology. And like, for instance, let me read a passage with Denis, I think Denis Noble, where he said, no, we have it, we always, when talk about biologists or molecular biologists, and like James Tour as an organic chemist, and molecular biologist, like forgot his name right, but I remember it as I go. That guy, Darwin Black Box. I might remember her name as I go along. But many, talk about biology, the DNA, the RNA, the ribosome, endoplasmic reticulum, lysome, and all of these different things within biology, life and stuff like that, information, in biology. And not metaphor, but they're one-to-one corresponding. We talk about information. We're not using metaphor. We are really talking about information, language, biological information coded within the DNA, and the what they call it, the triplets or the codon, which code for amino acid and transfer you have the taxis of amino acid, just 20 of them will need to create life, have to link up in a particular way to form in a three-dimensional protein, which would create life. And DNA is made up of protein, and DNA is necessary to build protein, and the chicken and egg dilemma, and all of these things involved in biology. Now then it's not common to see. We talk about the DNA code for these different biological enzyme and mechanism to make biological life possible. Now you have Denis Noble come on the scene now to create a paradigm shift. Listen to what he said. As wonderful as it is, DNA is not a mystical factor controlling the cell. DNA is a tool of the cell. A significant part of DNA is stored in the nucleus, giving an enormous impression that this is the center of the organization. A bit like municipal office, in a local in a local authority, but cells are not controlled from the center. So there are two enormous assumptions about DNA. One, that it is some sort of code or blueprint for life, and two, that it is a central organizer. Both are false. Code is a metaphor. Organizer is simply wrong. It is the cell that organizes itself. It is organism that parcel out its DNA in the form of its chromosome to pass these tools on to the next generation. Furthermore, organism may share the tools. Perhaps the real secret was that we failed to see this. The focus on DNA as a code may be why this was so. So this guy does not believe in anything. We talk about talk with any microbiologists, biologists, organic chemists. They all talk about code, the code of the DNA code, and all of these things. And it's without the DNA, with all the information coded in it, it's life would be impossible. And the RNA and messenger RNA and transfer RNA and all of these things talk a lot about the code. No, he came along and he said it's no code. He said there is no code. It's a metaphor. In life itself, it's almost as currently we biologists and microbiologists and all of those who involved in the origin of life, or the whole biology of life and the um, physiology of life. It's like they are looking at things from a top up, sort of way, or from the center and spread out. This guy is moving from the whole organism. The whole organism. Because, for instance, a lot of as science progresses, they're discovering that the DNA is not the central thing here. It's the whole organism involved in making who you are, making me who I am, and all of these things. It's not focus on one particular thing. Don't focus on the DNA so much. DNA is code for this, DNA is code for that. RNA and all of these things is a code and stuff like that. The whole organism as a whole is a holistic thing. It's taking things from an holistic approach. When it is involved with every cell in a body. The DNA is just a tool that the cell uses. Nothing special about it. And all of these things that we look upon and we put a lot of praise on the DNA, the information in the DNA. And without the DNA, and this guy said it's just another tool that the whole organism uses. How life started, biblically, life does not start with one cell, then another cell. Some talk about the RNA world, and with Dr. James Tour come on the scene, there's no such thing as an RNA, where RNA is very unstable, takes seconds, minutes before it decay and break down. These things have been observed in intricate, functioning of the lab to show you that these things are very difficult. All these molecules very difficult to make, and they have to be done within certain span of time, not billions of years, called an evolutionary paradigm. And then you're going to extrapolate now. You take all of this information, this delicate, complex work in the lab with these molecules, and then you extrapolate it out and the world now outside, and outside in nature. Do you think nature could do that? Do that? Blind forces physical and chemical process, blind physical and chemical process could create these these super molecules, these delicate and complicated things in nature under some rock. That is a problem that James Tour have with these original of life researchers. So life life did not come about with one molecule at a time over billions of years that come together, then RNA and then protein and all of these things, and then boom, you have an organism. No, the organism was created at the beginning. There was no pre-biology. There was biology at the onset. God created things as systems of life. God didn't create any one molecule there, one amino acid there, and RNA and DNA, and then over billions of years, by some happenstance, things come together and then form me. Animals and birds and stuff like that. No. God created creatures as living organism. Everything was intact. That's why every RNA, DNA, all of these things was simultaneously in you to make you a living thing that work in perfect coordination to keep you alive. Right? And there's more to biology. Biology, you a dead body of all of these things. A person died right at this second of all of these things inside of him. All of this RNA, protein, amino acid, all of these things, carbohydrate, nucleic acid, all of these things is in that person. But there's a missing factor. Back then they called it vitalism. But this is not far from the truth, because vitalism cannot be proven scientifically. That's why they discarded it. Oh, it's not scientifically proven, so we don't believe in it. But vitalism is like what we would say there's a spiritual, there's a non-physical component to us. This is what makes us alive. We call it the soul. Some call it spirit. The I, the ego, the subject. This is what makes you keep you alive. But let us stick to the biological part. So he's moving from top down. The organism, when it exists, take the organism and examine him, and you find these things that we call code. But to the organism is not really code. It's just a tool that the whole organism use. And then we find out in science now that when the genes turn off, gene communicate from genes all over your body. Very complex. Very complex. Remember that when they discovered, they decoded that they mapped the whole human genome, the whole world was in an uproar. Oh, we map the human genome. We're going to find cure for all of these diseases that's plaguing us, humankind for centuries. We're going to find a cure. Until this very day, find which cure. This is what he's talking about. That is not some kind of, you think by scanning the human genome, you're going to find the cure. It's not simple as you might think it. It's not as simple as that. Far more complicated than that. They'll find a cure for cystic fibrosis, and all know they can't. They find a gene for it. A lot of disease, they know the gene for it, but they can't cure it. They can't. Because you might think that's one gene involved. You might think that 10 genes involved. But there are several genes involved. And then it corresponds with other genes elsewhere in your body. So you see the complication that involved when people trying to find a cure for a particular disease, and in believing that they'll find a cure by thoroughly examining, by meticulous scrutiny, the cure. They're going to find this particular gene and we're going to cure it because we know what gene. This is not as simple as all these guys think it. Body is enormously complex, and genes spread out all over. The connection, over trillions of cells in our body, and they work in perfect unison, they work perfect coordination and synchrony and symphony. Oh my God, man, this beautifully created. And you talk about evolve? Mm-mm-mm. So it's blueprint, this blueprint and code. It doesn't look at things that way at all. It's both are false. It continue. There's a beauty in DNA with just few nucleotides. The cell can manufacture almost all amino acids it needs. Nearly all our proteins are made with just 20 types of amino acid. This is often referred to as a code, but functionally, DNA is a template. The use of words like code can be misleading. If we want to leave you, if we want to leave you a secret message, we might put it in a coded form. And if you had an Enigma machine or its modern equivalent, you might be able to understand it. But this is not how life works. We use a series of letters A, T, C, G to represent the base pair of the DNA, but that then is only a code because we have created it to represent the base pairs. Nature does not need a code. It really has the base pairs. It already, no, it already has the base pairs, and it does not need to represent them. Certainly not as letters of the alphabet. So according to him, we could use numbers, we could use different things to represent these molecules in the body, but we use A, G, C, and we call these are the alphabet, the four alphabet of biology, and which create a sentence as how they would. So these are the alphabet, and then it create a sentence, uh, create a word what they call triplets or codon, and then codon, you know, is then create a sentence and paragraph and a whole book of the human body. That's where they put it. But this guy is coming to change the whole concept of biology. I'm going to deal with more with this guy over a period of time. Very fascinating book, very fascinating Heidi. What do you think about it? You know, about Denis Noble and his concept, because he come on the scene now um, to, to change the whole paradigm of what we think about DNA as the coding and all of these things, and look from from the organic whole to its parts, instead of from the parts to the organic whole. So what we deem as code is not really code to nature, and all of these things is then we come up with these things, and then we superimpose them upon nature, but nature doesn't see things that way, and doesn't work that way according to what he's saying. Very interesting. uh but so yeah, he's out there with his information trying to, you know, change a lot of stuff, or we look on a lot of stuff, because we're human beings, and that is the thing within science and even biology too. Different as we understand more, because we still don't understand a lot, then older understanding is been substituted, have been, you know, tossed in the garbage pan, because it's no more, it doesn't explain as reality, as accurate as the novel one, the one that is now on the rise. So very interesting way to look at things, and the body, as Dr. Tour said, the goalpost is moving further away. You think by now you will discover certain things, but the more you study, the more things become very complex. And the same thing with the physical universe, the universe itself. The more these science, this physicists and theoretical physicists and these bright mind, you know, study the universe and the particles and the wave function and all of these things, the more it becomes more complex for them. And it's as more as they find themselves against a impenetrable wall. Like for instance, the quantum um, in quantum mechanics, when they talk about the wave function, it seems it's very difficult for them to go beyond that, even to understand it. To understand what's going on here. And as J.C. Lai says, almost everything within in the science or physics is deterministic. Mathematics can roll out and give an estimation of where one particle started from, in where it would end up and stuff like that. But when it comes on to the quantum, the wave function, it's to observe it is to change the whole ontology of it. It moves like something that is sensitive to the observer. I don't want you to see me. I don't want you to see me in this form, so I'm going to move this way. I'm going to, very probabilistic and very difficult to really put a scientific harness on it, so to speak. It's amazing. And and the same thing with biology. The more they study biology, they come up, they found some astounding aspect of it that challenge the capacity of human capacity to understand, to explain these things. More difficult. So the more they study, the more things get more difficult, and they try to weasel away and understand a little bit more this difficulty. But then it becomes more difficult again. The more they know, the more they find it more difficult, and it get difficult as the more they learn. So it's like they're studying something that is bottomless. It's an abyss. A biological abyss. Is there a biological abyss and a universal abyss to nature itself, where no human can fathom it? It's beyond. It's transcend human capacity to fathom it. You can't get to the bottom of it. By faith, you have to believe that the universe was formed by the word of God. That's what God said. By faith, you have to believe that it was formed by the word created. So how are you going to use science to get to the heart of it? It is word-based. So your science can't get to it. You speak something right now. No science, there's no scientific way to get to really capture, grasp what I said scientifically. It's beyond the rules of science, the tenets of science. So the principle of science. You can't. This is a teller, man. There is no cosmic evolution. There is no biological evolution. As James so rightly put it, all of these origin of life researchers and PhD researchers, they're all going to die before they come close to even figure out how life gets started on the earth. All of them, they're going to die. The student going to die, and the student's going to die. And James Tour said he will not say never, because as a scientist he can't say never because of the analogy that he used, as I was talking about first century people. You talk about them creating, making cars to drive miles and all of these things, they would think you're crazy, and then it come to pass in the future. But there are certain things right off the bat, man. As I said before, it's just as though God said the universe, you have to, by faith, you have to believe that the universe is the same thing. By faith, you have to believe that God spoke living thing into existence, living systems into existence. The time there's no molecules, there's no pre-biological molecules on the earth that over billions of years by happenstance just come together. Dr. James Tour make that very, very clear that molecules have no interest in life. They have no brain, they have no intuition, they have no drive to come together to form life and talk and communicate like human beings. We can come together, we can put our brain power together, we can brainstorm and put certain things in place, and then we build. You think that molecules function this way? Molecules are not living entities. They're dead organic compounds that need living system to take them and put them together to make systems that function. That's what it is. God didn't have to take. God created everything instantaneously. Create living things. Trees come to be. Things in the oceans. He spoke them into being. This is the kind of God that scientists don't like. They don't want him in science, and yet he's the one that makes science possible by how he created things, by how he created our mind to understand the intelligibility of the universe. That's why Denis Noble can say these things, because of his level of intelligence and how we see things. Everybody, as much as they talk certain way and we use by design and creative ingenuity and stuff like that, they have been infected to some degree or sort by evolutionary paradigm or evolutionary methodology and somewhere along the line. But that's what he says. That's, he's stop talk about code and all of these things. There's no code. So these are the superimposition of nature by us. Nature to see them. But I have some question that I would like to ask as I look into more of his book, or as I deal with it more on some of my videos. But yeah, these are people who look very insightful and look penetratively into things, very deep into things that to change the paradigm shift, but to create a whole paradigm right now, to create a paradigm shift into things on how we see things and over the years and view things, but James Tour right now is challenging the whole Origin Life research community, challenging them, and they can't confront him, they can't challenge him. What's his name? Dave Serena, or one of this guy on YouTube that talks about a lot of biology and these evolutionary explanation to it. Dave Serena, I think, challenge Dr. James. It's like David and Goliath. It was embarrassing defeat, because it didn't. I'm not saying that it doesn't know a little, but it was a horrible defeat. And it doesn't matter how he talk and behave as if, he wasn't defeated, or what honestly, it was a disgrace, man. Because he couldn't. Dr. James Tour, massive for him. The guy's a PhD, massive brain power, intelligence, and then you have this little YouTuber one ability thing. He said he wanted to counteract him and behave as if he know anything about organic chemistry. I know nothing. He couldn't even go on the board and write anything. Nothing. It's like me knowing a little bit maths. Best basics maths to get me around. That's a man don't take away my 1 cent and 2 cents. And then I want to go on have a debate with a PhD in mathematics. I'm suffering. You know what? I'm suffering from a delusion of grandeur. I don't have a PhD level of mathematics to stand up with a PhD in mathematics. But I can argue with a PhD and about maths, where does maths, if he's a guy that doesn't believe he's a atheist guy, where the concept of maths come from, where is it from, you know? And in that way we could argue, but to go toe to toe with him and mathematics and arithmetics and all of these things, I would be a fool. And this is the thing with James Tour and Dave Ferrino. He didn't know his limitation. He can't stand up with James Tour. If you're not a PhD in organic chemistry, and even PhD in organic chemistry is afraid of him, because he put, I think, about 4 or 5 things out there to challenge these guys, and they can't face him, they can't confront him, because there's no answers. They have no answers, because all they think they will find the whole scientific explanation of how life came to be, and they will never find it. Never, ever. As I said, I can speak that way, but James Tour don't want to speak that way. But if James Tour would jump over into the religious aspect, half of talking about life, then he could talk that way, because you know that on a religious side, on a religious basis, you know that God created life. And if God created it, who can create it? You might find, just like where you might never seen a car before, and then you start to look on the different components of it, and the most intuitive, the most natural disposition, or the most natural drive for you, or for you at that time, when you just look at these things and hoping it, and look at all of these inside and the engine and all of these things, you say, who created this? Who made this? That will be the most natural response. And then somebody would walk up to you, oh, it just come about over years, and the sands and the wind and the rain and some molecules just, and then it just boom, voila, we have a car here. You look at it, what? What did you say a while ago? The most honest response, that's what you would make. This has to be created by some being, someone. That would be the most natural and honest response. But no, we fight, because they don't want God to be the creator of. We don't want intelligence come from mind. Intelligence come from creature, being, a living system with the capacity to reason with the laws of logics. Evolutionary process of nothing close to that. Can't make anything. Why people always think things have to take millions of years to come. It's just for this Bible to be what it is, and this book with all of these writing and research papers in it, years of studying and investigation, archaeological finding, and Greek and Hebrew and Aramaic and all of these things, and lexical meaning, and all of these things come by millions of years of evolutionary process. You out of your mind? You out of your mind? This is the work of intelligence. The work of intelligence. Intelligent mind of a living, breathing organism. Human being. Subscribe. Subscribe, man. Let us reason together. Don't be afraid to subscribe, man. If you love information and want to reason about fundamental things about reality, then you subscribe and let us talk together. I know a lot of, entertainment gets you nowhere, man. A lot of people focus a lot and subscribe a lot and for entertainment. You can call it, it's not about entertainment. This is about dealing with fundamental things that impact one's life. I understand a lot of stuff about life and reality. So don't talk nonsense. talk, we do our research, and we talk about fundamental things and truth. So it's something deep. People must love deep things, man, fundamental things. And if you love deep and fundamental things about science and Christianity and philosophy, then subscribe. Okay, have a nice day. Out.